So Insta360 is releasing a refresh of that AI face tracking camera from a couple years ago that everyone was getting a boner over. This is called the Insta360 Link 2, which is basically a refresh of the original Link. So still has all the same features, still has that gimbal, still does the face tracking, still 4K, but now they're also releasing a standard webcam called the 2C, which is basically the same webcam. It just doesn't have that gimbal, so they can bring down the cost. The one in my hand right now is just a prototype of the Link 2, but you are looking at an actual production model of the Link 2. So this is the actual footage that you're gonna get out of it when you guys use my affiliate links down below. Here, look, this is like literally, I'm gonna wave my hand over it. That's actually like, there you go. This is the actual camera. The interesting thing about these two cameras is they're actually cheaper than the original Link. So this is the original Link right here. You can see this one, bit of a wide boy compared to the original one, but the original Link was $300 when it came out. I think right now it's $225. This one is retailing right now for $200, and the 2C is for $150. That's pretty nuts. Like, how often do you see a company release an upgraded model of the previous one and then charge less money? Are they dumb? Like, why would they do that? You can make so much more money if you just charge more money for it. Yes, this is a sponsored video, but as you'll see later on, that's not going to stop me from being brutally honest. I just asked if they're dumb in a sponsored video. Who does that? That being said, I know how you guys feel about sponsored videos. You probably are going to think that I'm going to smooth over the flaws of the webcam because I'm being paid off by Insta360. So I'm not going to talk too much about what I personally feel about how the webcam quality looks, because you guys have eyes. You can figure that out on your own anyway. This is the Link 2. It's a gimbal controlled webcam that you can physically pan and tilt the camera around using the included software. You can also zoom in and out, but it's only a digital zoom. But this is a 4K webcam. So if you stream at 1080p, you can zoom in up to 2 times without losing any quality. The new version of the software lets you save up to 10 presets. I think the original only let you save 6. So you can drag your camera around to whatever position might be interesting for your viewers, save that preset, and then you can snap to those predefined positions by clicking on it in the software or by hitting a hotkey on your keyboard. And just like the original Link, it still has AI face tracking, which I will turn on right now. So if you look at the camera, as I move around the room, you can see the camera is physically tilting to follow me. So even when I stand up and walk here, and go behind this camera, it might lose me for a little bit, but as soon as I go back in frame, it will track me again. So if I like go behind here, it might lose me, but then come back in frame, should start tracking me again. None of this is super new because you saw this with the original Link. Still got that touch sensor on the front too, so it's still tracking me. But if I touch that sensor, it will blink a couple times to signify that the tracking is turned off. Also, it still has hand gestures, so if I hold up my hand like this, it blinks a few times, and then it tracks me again. And then I could just click on the preset in the software, and then we'll snap back to the original position. The auto settings are pretty okay, but I feel like with the super bright lights behind me, it tends to overexpose me a little bit. So I always recommend setting the exposure to manual, which will allow you to manually set your shutter speed and ISO. I manually set mine to 1/60th, and then I adjust my ISO until my skin is exposed properly. I also found the default settings to be a little bit too contrasty, so I just turned down the contrast slider a little bit, but the auto white balance settings are pretty good. I feel like this is the natural color of my skin. If you did want to adjust the color temperature manually, you can do that, but there is still no tint control. So I complained about the original Link having no tint control. We still don't have any tint control. So if you find your shot a little bit too green or magenta, unfortunately, you can't adjust that. So I don't know if they can just add that with a software update, but I've been asking for like a couple years and they still haven't done it. So I don't know what they're going to do. Now, the autofocus. I almost never recommend autofocus on webcams, but I feel like the last few webcams I've looked at from OBSBot and Insta360, the autofocus is unreal. Like, look how fast this is. This is my K-pop lights, by the way. How pretty does this look? Does this look awesome? But yeah, this is insane. Like, it's super smooth. It never loses focus of my eyeballs. I did feel like with the original Insta360, the focus was, I thought it was really good. It's a little bit slower and sometimes it loses focus of my eyes. With this webcam, I've never had an issue with the webcam not locking in on exactly what I wanted to focus on. Sitting about an arm's length away, you can get enough natural background blur. So if you want like that natural bokeh effect, which is super popular for streaming, you can even get that on this webcam. The software also allows you to control the gimbal using your phone. So you can scan a QR code in the software and that will pull up this interface where you could control the gimbal, you can zoom in and out, you can snap to your 10 different preset positions. I do think the joystick is way too slow though, which is weird because in the old version of the software, I had no issues with the speed of the gimbal, but now with this new version, when I move the camera around from my phone, it's super slow. So I hope they can update that because this camera, the gimbal can move pretty fast. It's much faster than the OBSBot cameras. So I would like to see them update the phone software. Just make it easier and more swift for us to move the camera around. So what's actually new about the Link 2? Because all these features I talked about, you could do it with the original Link. Well, we already talked about the price, so it's cheaper than the original. We talked about the focus, which is marginally better than the Link, but probably not a reason to upgrade. There are a few niche features that they added. For one, they now have a feature called group tracking. So if you stream with multiple guests, you can have it track both of you so that you're both in frame. It also has a feature called pause track area. We saw this feature with the OBSBot Tiny 2, so you can set a region for the camera where it won't track you, but as soon as you stand up and leave that region, it will automatically start tracking you until you walk back in frame. You can also apply some digital effects now, so you can add a fake background blur or bokeh if you like that. Personally, I don't really care for that because it looks super weird. There's also some beauty options, which I explained in another video, but they're not that popular in the West. But for Asian markets always have beauty options plastered in every single camera app. Totally different market. Most of you guys probably won't care about that. Oh yeah, you can also save color presets now. So maybe you want to have different exposure settings for different scenarios. You don't want to have to manually change all those sliders. You can just make presets for them. Honestly, I don't see a reason why half of these features can't just be added to the original Link with like a software update. None of these features really move the needle in any meaningful way, but the Link 2 is cheaper than the Link 1, so it's hard for me to complain. But it is also hard for me to get super excited about it because there's nothing really new that we haven't seen before. Comparing the picture quality side by side, it's a similar story. It's not a massive improvement. I do prefer the colors of the Link 2 slightly. I feel like the original Link tends to make me look a little bit green. And like I said before, there's no tint control. So if it looks a little bit green, you can't fix that in the software. You can play around with color temperature a little bit, but ultimately, I think the Link 2 just renders my skin tones a bit better. I also think the Link 2 has a little bit more clarity. You can see a bit more of the skin texture of the years and decades of eczema that has traumatized me my entire life. You can see that on my face on the Link 2. The Link 1 tends to smooth that over just a little bit, but we're really splitting hairs here. The Link 1 still looks really amazing. So if you have a Link 1, there's no reason to upgrade to the Link 2. Now, we haven't talked about the 2C yet, and that's because it looks the same. Like, this is the same camera as the Link 2, exactly same picture quality. I cannot tell the difference between these side by side. This one just doesn't have the gimbal. Now, even though this doesn't have a gimbal, you can still do that auto framing face tracking thing. It's just that obviously this it can't swivel on an axis or anything. So as soon as you go outside of the frame, it's not gonna be able to track you anymore. But if you still want face tracking in like a standard, like normal webcam form factor, you're gonna get that with the 2C. This is really just a small iterative refresh. I don't know how to say the word iterative. It just makes me sound smart. But you know, with the original Link, that was a groundbreaking webcam. We'd never seen a webcam with that quality, let alone with the face tracking features before. And now since we've seen it on the market for like 2 years, yeah, you guys know what the deal is already. So if you like this, but you couldn't afford it before, that's cool. But if you already have one, then this is probably a skip for you. One last test. This is a test of both the low light performance. So I only have the ceiling lights on. I turn off all my studio lighting, which if you're a streamer, you should get some real lights. Never stream without any proper lighting. It's also a test of the built-in microphone because yes, this does have a built-in microphone, unlike the Elgato face cams. Again, if you are a streamer, you probably have a dedicated mic anyway, which is probably better than this one, but it's a sponsored video, so I have to put all this stuff in there. I will say one legitimate downside of the Link 2 compared to the Link 1 is you can see the Link 1 is a lot smaller than the Link 2, but what that means is the camera is actually able to physically tilt on its side, which means if you're filming content for like TikTok or YouTube Shorts in vertical format, you can just set the resolution to a vertical resolution in the settings, and then the camera will physically tilt so you can take full advantage of the full sensor. That was a really cool feature that truly differentiated the original Link from competitors like OBSBot, because so far I think the Link is the only AI face tracking camera that allows you to do that. I'm honestly pretty disappointed that you can't do that with the Link 2, but at least you can go up to 4K 30 in portrait mode. The Link 1 can only go up to 1080p. I will say that the monitor mount that comes with the Link 2 is way better. It's got like this magnetic stand thing that you could like push out. So if you want, you can just physically rotate the camera on its side manually. And that magnetic lip thing that has going on allows you to also physically tilt the camera down, which helps with that desk view feature. We didn't talk about the desk view feature today, but if you watch the original Link video, it has a feature called desk view where it points the camera down and then does some like manipulation of the video to make it sort of look like a top-down camera angle. But with the original Link, it always looks super weird, like your fingers look like you're an alien, like Victor Wembanyama. The Link 2, because you could physically tilt that camera down, it does help to make it look not so distorted. So I do think the monitor mount is a lot better here. Overall, marginal improvements all around, but it is really cool to see that these AI face tracking cameras are getting so much cheaper that they're pretty much approaching the cost of like normal webcams without really sacrificing the quality of the video.